I froze the moment she reached for my hand under the dinner table. Her fingers were trembling so badly that I thought she was about to faint. Then, without looking at me, my roommate leaned closer and whispered just 4 words that shattered the quiet evening and changed the course of both our lives forever. "Please, kiss me." I had no idea why she was asking. I had no idea what danger she was trying to escape. But one glance into her frightened eyes told me that whatever happened in the next few seconds would decide much more than an awkward family dinner. Sometimes the smallest decision becomes the greatest turning point of a lifetime, and I learned that night that love doesn't always begin with romance. Sometimes it begins with compassion. If you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us of the beauty hidden in ordinary lives. When I first met Emma, she was nothing like the frightened young woman sitting beside me that evening. She was confident, organized, and endlessly optimistic. We became roommates simply because we answered the same apartment listing online. I had just accepted a new job after spending months unemployed, and she had moved across the city to start graduate school. Neither of us expected anything beyond sharing rent and dividing household chores. We agreed on simple rules, respected each other's privacy, and slowly became friends through the ordinary routines of everyday life. Living together revealed the parts of Emma that the rest of the world rarely saw. She smiled often, but she also woke up from nightmares more times than she admitted. She laughed at my terrible cooking, yet sometimes stared silently out the kitchen window for long stretches as if she were remembering something painful. Whenever her phone displayed her parents' names, her entire body became tense. She would answer politely, force a cheerful voice, then sit quietly for hours after hanging up. I never asked too many questions because everyone carries invisible scars. Instead, we built our friendship through little acts of kindness. I fixed her old bicycle when its chain snapped before an important exam. She stayed awake with me while I prepared for difficult presentations at work. When I caught the flu, she made soup exactly the way my late grandmother used to make it, even though I had only mentioned the recipe once. Somehow strangers sharing an apartment slowly became the closest people in each other's daily lives. Months passed peacefully until one rainy Friday evening when Emma came home looking unusually pale. She closed the apartment door, leaned against it, and burst into tears before saying a single word. She apologized repeatedly for crying, but the tears refused to stop. After almost an hour she finally explained that her parents had invited themselves to visit the next evening. It wasn't really an invitation. It was a command disguised as family concern. She confessed something that completely changed the way I understood her life. Her parents believed success meant absolute obedience. They had already chosen the man they expected her to marry. He came from a wealthy family with a respected business, and everyone around them considered the arrangement perfect. Emma had spent years refusing politely, hoping they would eventually respect her decision. Instead, the pressure only became stronger. Every visit turned into another lecture about duty, reputation, and family honor. They never asked whether she was happy. I suggested she simply refused to meet them, but she smiled sadly. Some people imagine every family can be solved with one brave conversation. Reality is rarely that simple. She loved her parents despite everything. She wanted their acceptance, not a permanent war. She hoped every meeting might somehow become different. The following evening I cleaned the apartment while she nervously prepared dinner. Her hands shook as she arranged the plates. Several times she nearly dropped glasses onto the floor. I kept reassuring her that everything would be fine, even though I wasn't convinced myself. Her parents arrived exactly on time. They were polite toward me, but their politeness carried the cold distance reserved for strangers who didn't matter. Throughout dinner they praised the successful man they wanted Emma to marry. They spoke about expensive houses, prestigious careers, and grandchildren they expected someday. Emma barely touched her food. Then her father casually mentioned that the engagement announcement could happen within weeks. I watched all the color disappear from Emma's face. Her breathing became shallow. She looked trapped. That was when her trembling hand found mine beneath the table. Without turning her head, she leaned close enough for only me to hear those unforgettable words. "Please kiss me." For one endless heartbeat I couldn't think. I wasn't sure whether pretending to be her boyfriend would help or make everything worse. But fear filled her eyes so completely that I stopped analyzing the situation. Compassion overcame hesitation. I gently held her face and kissed her softly. The apartment became silent. Her parents stared as though the world had suddenly shifted beneath their feet. Emma closed her eyes, and for the first time that evening her shoulders relaxed slightly. Whatever burden she had carried into that room had become lighter, even if only for a moment. The silence didn't last. Her father demanded an explanation. Emma quietly admitted that we had grown close while living together. That wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. We genuinely cared about each other. We simply had never called it love. The dinner ended badly. Her parents left disappointed, angry, and deeply hurt. Emma collapsed onto the couch the moment the door closed. She apologized over and over for placing me in such an impossible situation. She worried she had destroyed my reputation, complicated my future relationships, and ruined our friendship. I told her the truth. I wasn't angry. I was worried about her. That night neither of us slept much. We sat on the apartment balcony listening to distant traffic while talking more honestly than we ever had before. She described years of living according to everyone else's expectations. Every achievement had been measured by someone else's approval. Every dream had required permission. She confessed that asking me to kiss her wasn't part of some clever plan. It was an act of desperation because she couldn't find another way to make her parents understand that her life belonged to her. Over the following weeks everything changed. Her parents stopped calling. Friends from her hometown began asking uncomfortable questions after hearing rumors. Some believed Emma had betrayed her family. Others assumed I had manipulated her. Gossip spread faster than truth ever could. Work also became difficult. One coworker recognized Emma from social media and jokingly asked whether I specialized in rescuing women from arranged marriages. Everyone laughed except me. They had no idea how painful the situation truly was. Emma blamed herself for every problem. She started skipping meals and lost interest in school. The confident woman who once filled our apartment with music now moved through each day quietly, almost apologetically. Watching someone you care about slowly disappear is a different kind of heartbreak. One evening I found her sitting alone in the dark living room holding an old family photo album. She wasn't crying. Somehow that frightened me even more. She told me she missed her mother terribly. Not because her mother had been especially kind during those difficult years, but because love between parents and children never completely disappears, even after disappointment. She wondered whether choosing her own future meant losing her family forever. I reminded her that love built on fear isn't really love. Real families don't always agree, but they keep searching for understanding. The next morning I did something that surprised even me. I wrote a long letter to her parents. I didn't accuse them. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I described the remarkable daughter they had raised. I wrote about the way she secretly paid grocery bills for elderly neighbors who struggled financially. I explained how she tutored younger students without charging them because education mattered more than money. I told them about the nights she stayed awake helping me prepare for interviews after I had nearly given up on finding work. I wanted them to see the woman standing before them instead of the future they had imagined. Weeks passed without any reply. Life slowly continued. Emma graduated near the top of her class. I received a promotion. Our friendship grew deeper through shared struggles rather than perfect moments. Somewhere along that difficult journey, pretending slowly transformed into something neither of us expected. We never officially discussed becoming a couple because our feelings had quietly become part of everyday life. It happened while grocery shopping together, celebrating small victories, comforting each other after disappointing days, and learning that genuine love often grows slowly instead of arriving like lightning. Then, almost 3 months after that unforgettable dinner, someone knocked on our apartment door. Emma opened it. Her mother stood there alone. She looked older than before, as though grief had stolen years from her face. Without saying much, she simply held out my letter. The paper had been folded and unfolded so many times that the edges were worn. She admitted she had read those pages countless times. She confessed that for the first time she realized her daughter wasn't rejecting the family. She was simply asking for permission to become herself. Emma and her mother embraced for what felt like forever. Neither of them had perfect words. They only had tears. Healing rarely happens through dramatic speeches. More often it begins with two people choosing not to walk away. Her father needed longer. Months later he finally agreed to meet us at a quiet park. He didn't apologize immediately. Pride is often the last wall people surrender. Instead, he asked about Emma's studies, my job, and our apartment. It sounded ordinary, but hidden inside those ordinary questions was something extraordinary. He was trying. Eventually he admitted he had spent so many years trying to protect his daughter from uncertainty that he forgot she needed freedom more than protection. Emma squeezed my hand. This time she wasn't asking me to save her. She simply wanted me beside her. Years have passed since that unforgettable evening. We eventually married, not because of one desperate kiss, but because thousands of ordinary days proved we belonged together. Our wedding wasn't extravagant. The greatest gift was seeing both of her parents smiling as they watched their daughter walk toward a future she had chosen for herself. Sometimes visitors ask how our love story began. They expect something romantic. Instead, I tell them it began with fear, compassion, forgiveness, and the courage to stand beside someone when they needed hope more than certainty. Because that single whispered request wasn't really about a kiss. It was about trust. It was about believing one person might choose kindness when the entire world felt frightening. And sometimes that's all another human being needs to start believing in tomorrow again. Before we reach the end, tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when one small act of kindness completely changed someone's life, or your own? We'd love to read your story. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing emotional stories that remind us all that compassion, forgiveness, and love still exist in this world. Life rarely changes because of grand speeches or perfect plans. More often, it changes because someone chooses kindness in the exact moment another person feels completely alone. A trembling whisper, an unexpected act of courage, a patient heart willing to understand instead of judge, these are the moments that quietly rewrite destinies. And if there is one lesson our journey taught me, it is this: the greatest love stories are not built on perfect beginnings. They are built by imperfect people who refuse to let fear have the final word.